Today I get to talk about Joseph Campbell. I love Joseph Campbell. I know I say that about everybody, but he is very special. Okay, so I'm going to start off with this quote. It kind of scares me. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. A lot of times you just have to go for it in life. I mean, everybody's trying to dodge or avoid the thing. It's like, no, you have to just go right in there. It reminds me of this quote from Marcus Aurelius: the obstacle is the way. Okay, so back to Joseph Campbell. He was heavily influenced by Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. And so am I, but especially this Jungian thought we've just gone through. Now, not only did this help him develop his theories, but he was also inspired by Eastern religions. Well, Tim loves that. And Native American thought. Well, I haven't talked nearly enough about Native American theology. I'll get to some of it later on, but I'm heavily inspired by that angle as well. Now, he has this quote right here. He says, every religion is true in one way or another. If you understand it metaphorically, but if you start interpreting it as facts, then you're in trouble. Uh-oh. This is why I love Father Andre, because he says the Bible's not a book of facts, it's a book of faith. The stories are in there to convey certain knowledge, those numinous truths I've been talking about. And so don't get caught up on the details of the story, forest, desert, this, that, or the other. Get caught up on what is the moral of the story. Okay, enough about that. Okay, so what is his idea? Well, his idea is it's very simple. Mono, one, myth. There is only one story, and here's the formula for all stories that have ever been told throughout time. He based this on his lectures that he would give, but he says this is what happens. There's a hero, that's the protagonist. He ventures out from the common world, and then he goes into this real trippy place. I call it Trippy Town. And he encounters all these different forces, but eventually he wins a victory. And then after the victory, he comes back home, and then he comes back home with something called a boon, which is a blessing. Okay, so to me, it's all about departure and return. So I'm going to talk about Lord of the Rings here in just a minute, but the Shire is the normal town, right? Here's Common Day, and you're called to leave the Shire, right? Then you go to Trippy Town. You encounter all these forces, a victory is won, you come back home, but you come back home with a blessing. Now, the blessing can be a lot of different things, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But this is the basic, formula. Okay, so there's a lot of steps along the way. You don't have to remember all this. I'm going to come back to this, but you're called to adventure. Sometimes you meet a mentor. We've talked about that, the wise old man. And then you do all these different things. Sometimes you have to die and get reborn, but you come back home a changed person, but also with a gift right here, the boon. Okay, so I think on the next slide what I have is a little movie that's going to explain this whole circle to you, and then we'll come back and I'll talk a little bit more about what the boon or what the heroic act is all about.
What do Harry Potter, Katniss Everdeen, and Frodo all have in common with the heroes of ancient myths? What if I told you they are all variants of the same hero? Do you believe that? Joseph Campbell did. He studied myths from all over the world and published a book called The Hero with a Thousand Faces, retelling dozens of stories and explaining how each represents the monomyth, or hero's journey. So, what is the hero's journey? Think of it as a cycle. The journey begins and ends in the hero's ordinary world, but the quest passes through an unfamiliar, special world. Along the way, there are some key events. Think about your favorite book or movie. Does it follow this pattern? Status quo, that's where we start. 1 o'clock, call to adventure. The hero receives a mysterious message, an invitation, a challenge. 2 o'clock, assistance. The hero needs some help, probably from someone older, wiser. 3 o'clock, departure. The hero crosses the threshold from his normal, safe home and enters the special world and adventure. We're not in Kansas anymore. 4 o'clock, trials. Being a hero is hard work. Our hero solves a riddle, slays a monster, escapes from a trap. 5 o'clock, approach. It's time to face the biggest ordeal, the hero's worst fear. 6 o'clock, crisis. This is the hero's darkest hour. He faces death and possibly even dies, only to be reborn. 7 o'clock, treasure. As a result, the hero claims some treasure, special recognition, or power. 8 o'clock, result. This can vary between stories. Do the monsters bow down before the hero, or do they chase him as he flees from the special world? 9 o'clock, return. After all that adventure, the hero returns to his ordinary world. 10 o'clock, new life. This quest has changed the hero. He has outgrown his old life. 11 o'clock, resolution. All the tangled plot lines get straightened out. 12 o'clock, status quo, but upgraded to a new level. Nothing is quite the same once you're a hero. Many popular books and movies follow this ancient formula pretty closely, but let's see how well The Hunger Games fits the hero's journey template. When does Katniss Everdeen hear a call to adventure that gets the story moving? When her sister's name is called from the lottery. How about assistance? Is anyone going to help her on her adventure? Hey, Mitch. What about departure? Does she leave her ordinary world? She gets on a train to the capital. Okay, so you get the idea. What do you have in common with Harry Potter, Katniss Everdeen, and Frodo? Well, you're human, just like them. The hero's journey myth exists in all human cultures and keeps getting updated because we humans reflect on our world through symbolic stories of our own lives. You leave your comfort zone, have an experience that transforms you, and then you recover and do it again. You don't literally slay dragons or fight Voldemort, but you face problems just as scary. Joseph Campbell said, "In the cave you fear to enter lies the treasure you seek." What is the symbolic cave you fear to enter? Auditions for the school play? Baseball tryouts? Love? Watch for this formula in books, movies, and TV shows you come across. You will certainly see it again, but also be sensitive to it in your own life. Listen for your call to adventure. Accept the challenge. Conquer your fear and claim the treasure you seek. And then do it all over again.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that little movie as much as I did. It's so cute, but it's also really effective with the animation showing the different components of the hero's journey or the monomyth. So back to the hero. I want to talk about the hero for a minute. There's actually two kinds of heroes. One is the physical hero. Like I go out and slay the dragon. After I kill the dragon, I save the village, bring back his gold, everybody's happy. You have a physical boon or a physical blessing. But there's another kind of hero that I'm more interested in. It's the spiritual hero. Buddha doesn't go and slay a dragon. In a way he does. It's his own temptations, right? He goes and sits under the Bodhi tree. He faces 3 temptations. After he's reached enlightenment, he comes back with a blessing. But the blessing's not physical. It's the Eightfold Path. It's a way to rid yourself of suffering. Okay, so on the next video, I think I have Joseph Campbell, and he's going to talk about the hero for a few seconds, and then he's going to get into this distinction between the physical hero versus the spiritual hero.
I mean, even in popular novel writing, you see, the main character is a hero or a heroine. That is to say, someone who has found or achieved or done something beyond the normal range of achievement and experience. A hero properly is someone who has given his life to something bigger than himself or other than himself.
So in all of these cultures, whatever the costume the hero might be wearing, what is the deed?
Well, there are 2 types of deed. One is the physical deed, the hero who has performed a war act or a physical act of heroism, saving a life, that's a hero act. Giving himself, sacrificing himself to another. And the other kind is the spiritual hero who has learned or found a mode of experiencing supernormal range of human spiritual life, and then come back and communicated it. It's a cycle. It's a going and a return that the hero cycle represents.
Okay, I wanted to focus on the spiritual hero for a minute. You don't have to remember all of this for the test, but it's a little bit different than the physical hero. I mean, they both leave the common world, but they're leaving society for a different reason. They don't really fit in or understand the society or the way it's currently structured. And then they face these trials alone. And after they face these trials alone, they come back with a boon, just like the physical hero, but their boon is really different. It's not always physical, it's more spiritual, which means it's a new way of thinking. I mean, yeah, Moses has the Ten Commandments in his hand, but it's really about a new way of thinking or a new way to order society. Okay, so let me just pick on two spiritual heroes. Buddha. He leaves society and goes into a forest alone and faces three temptations and then has this moment of enlightenment. And he has a new consciousness. And he comes out and he picks a group of people and starts a new way. Jesus leaves society, goes into a desert alone, faces three temptations, has this moment of enlightenment, comes out, picks a group of disciples, starts a new way. I mean, I could go Muhammad if I wanted to. Leaves society on a regular basis, goes into the cave, meditates alone, and then Gabriel comes to him eventually and says, proclaim him, and that's where we get the Quran. Okay, so another thing I would talk about with spiritual heroes, and you don't have to remember any of this for the test, but why does Jesus have so much in common with Krishna, Horus, and Mithra? And it's like, Tim, what do you mean? Well, all three of these were born on December 25th of a virgin birth. It's like, wow. And that before Jesus was born, okay? And so I could go in class and go into all this different detail about it, but let me just pick on Horus for a minute. Okay, Virgin Mother. His birth was announced by an angel, and then shepherds were led by a star. He disappeared between 12 and 30, and at 30 he got baptized. He starts his ministry. He had 12 disciples, performed miracles, was crucified between two thieves. What? Called the way, the truth, the light. And you're telling me the Hebrews were captured by the Egyptians and they didn't take any of this? It's like, I mean, come on. But what Joseph Campbell would say is that, at the collective unconscious level, we've always had the spiritual hero be this. And why? Okay, well, maybe way down here, we've always pined away for a cosmic savior. This is one reason. It's called wintertime. And why are they born on December 25th? Well, that's almost the winter solstice, where the days are the shortest and we don't have the sun and the earth is dead and we're scared, especially in ancient cultures. We don't have electricity this day or other. We're going to make it through the winter. And so this is when the deity is born. That's pretty trippy, right? And so it doesn't matter. It manifests itself different, just like mandalas do. But it's this deep understanding that we need a savior. And so it's wild if you look at this. You don't have to know any of this for the test, but when does the deity come? At the winter solstice, right around December 25th is when they're all born, because that's when the days are the shortest. But it's odd that we don't celebrate Jesus really. We kind of do at Christmas, but until Easter, he's reborn, which just so happens to be right around the vernal equinox. And the ancient cultures knew that the days started getting longer and the earth came alive again. And so is our Savior. He is risen, the sun, S-O-N. Does this make sense? S-U-N. Okay, so I hope I made some sense there. I wish I could talk more about it, but if you want to know more about this idea, go to this video called Zeitgeist. It's the very first one. And it will explain, part of that will explain this whole idea of the cosmic savior. Okay, let's come back to the hero's journey. There's a lot of different parts, but don't let this overwhelm you. I'm only going to talk about 3 as far as the test goes, if you could see that. The belly of the whale, this weird word apotheosis, but theos is God, and the ultimate boon, but that's just blessing. That's the gift the hero brings back. Oh, I forgot Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Does he leave home and have to go and learn a bunch of stuff and then come back with new knowledge to impart on the tribe? I don't know. Okay, enough about that. This is one of the best ideas I think Joseph Campbell has about the hero's journey. It doesn't represent a physical leaving and going. It's a psychological leaving and going. That you're leaving your normal way of thinking and going into your unconscious fears that usually is locked down there you don't want to address. This is why I like psychedelics. And then you come back a changed person and have a new way of thinking that you want to impart onto the tribe. Okay, so a lot of times heroes will leave like a safe, comfy place, the Shire, and go to this scary place like Mordor where there's all this doom and gloom and everything else. But that physical place really represents a psychological place within. I hope I'm making sense right now. And so that's what I call the jihad. Yeah, there's an external jihad in all these stories where they're going to slay the dragon or do this, but really they're slaying their own fears. And so I want to relate this to a couple of stories. I wish we were in class, but one of them is back to Star Wars. He leaves home. He's dressed in white. Notice that. Safe and comfy. And he gets down here somewhere. And something happens. Oh, yeah, I showed you this, the cave. And he has this showdown with Darth, but it's not really a showdown with Darth. Physically, it seems like it's happening. It's a showdown with himself, because when he cuts his head off, his own face is in there, and it's a hallucination. So it's this internal struggle with his own Sithness, but he comes back out of there, the master of two worlds, and he's dressed in black. Why? Because he has incorporated both sides of himself, unlike Natalie Portman in Black Swan. Oh, I wish we were in class. Okay, another story. Oh, yes, The Wizard of Oz. You get magical aid before you follow the yellow brick road and go into the trippy town, right? And you're going to address these unconscious fears maybe down here with addressing this, and then you're going to come back. Oh, I don't want to come back. I don't want to come back home. And what's the boon in this story? Oh, yeah. You got the slippers, and then you become the master of two worlds, and then... But maybe the whole story is about addressing your own fears, because it could have all been a dream, right? Okay, so, and one of the parts I promised that I would address is over here, the belly of the whale. Why do they say the belly of the whale? If you're not Christian folk, it's like, I don't know if you know this story, but it's about Jonah and the whale. Jonah was supposed to go to Nineveh to preach to the people, but he didn't want to because he was afeared. And so he's like, I'm not doing it. And so he ran the other way. And so he's on this boat, and this big storm comes up, and like all the people on the boat's like, WTF, why is this storm getting so crazy? And he goes, well, I didn't do what God wanted me to. And they pitch his ass off the boat. And then he eventually gets swallowed up by this big fish. And then 3 days later, the fish spits him out onto the ground, and God says, go to Nineveh, dude. And he has to go to Nineveh. Okay, I don't want to get into the rest of the story, but a lot of times the hero does not want to do what he or she is supposed to do. They have this moment when they first embark upon the journey where it's like, oh, snap. Well, guess what? Jesus had that moment. It's called Gethsemane. That's why I wrote a book called Gethsemane, and I love the whole grappling with, I don't want to do what you're telling me to do, God, but I'll go ahead and do it anyway. So I think on the next slide, I have another short movie clip of Joseph Campbell addressing the belly of the whale.
Jonah in the whale. I mean, that's a standard motif of going into the whale's belly and coming out again.
Why must the hero do that?
The whale represents the personification, you might say, of all that is in the unconscious. In reading these things psychologically, water is the unconscious. The creature in the water would be the dynamism of the unconscious, which is dangerous and powerful and has to be controlled by consciousness. The first stage in the hero adventure, when he starts off on adventure, is leaving the realm of light, which he controls and knows about, and moving toward the threshold, and it's at the threshold that the monster of the abyss comes to meet him. And then there are 2 or 3 results. One, the hero is cut to pieces and descends into the abyss in fragments to be resurrected, or he may kill the dragon power, as Siegfried does when he kills the dragon, but then he tastes the dragon blood. That's say he has to assimilate that power. And when Siegfried has killed the dragon and tasted the blood, he hears the song of nature. He has transcended his humanity, you know, and associated himself with the powers of nature, which are the powers of our life, from which our mind removes us. You see, this thing up here, this consciousness thinks it's running the shop. It's a secondary organ. It's a secondary organ of a total human being, and it must not put itself in control. It must submit and serve the humanity of the body.
I could watch that Joseph Campbell video all day long. He's so intelligent when he talks about how the water is the unconscious in stories and how the well represents the dynamism of the unconscious coming to approach the hero that's unsure of whether or not he or she wants to do it. Now, why do I have this word shaman on here? Well, I love shamans and talking about it. Later on, I'll give a lecture on mystical experiences. But the shamans go on a vision quest or a mystical journey, and it goes from Earth, normal realm of consciousness, to the heavens, to this weird, trippy spiritual world, and then they come back from the heavens to the earth, but they come back with something that they can cure the tribe with, a blessing, if you will. That is the hero's journey. Okay, so another thing that happens on these journeys, a lot of them report that they get dismembered or torn asunder. Now, Joseph Campbell just mentioned that in that previous video. You can see all the animals tearing apart the shaman right here. I really love this picture. So they get torn asunder to be put back together again. Now, this happened to actually Dionysius in Greek tradition. The Titans were sent to devour him as a child, but Hestia saved his heart, and that they would put him back together as a god. That kind of sounds like something I've already taught you. We're going to tear apart the raven as drink his blood, but put him back together again every year. That's Totem and Taboo by Sigmund Freud. Okay, so enough about that. If I look at this from Jesus's perspective, he was called to adventure. I forgot I had this one on here. And I mentioned before, he refused the call. He didn't want to do it. But then he says, okay, Father, if it's your will, not mine, be done. And so he nuts up to the task. And so eventually, right over here, I argue he's still a man. He's not divinity yet. And this is what the bottom is about. It's called apotheosis. Theos is in that word. That means God. So here's where he earns his divinity, his moment on the cross. It's when he dies, he goes into the belly of not the well, but the earth for 3 days. And then he comes back out of the belly of the earth and he says, I have the keys to death and hell. And now he's the master of 2 worlds. Okay, I hope you follow me right there. Okay, so he has to be reborn, and not just from a Christian tradition, from shamanistic traditions, all these other traditions. You got to be reborn after you're torn asunder. That's your life right there. It's completely your life. Okay, so I don't know if you've been in my intro class, but I talk a lot about psyche. Psyche, that's where we get the word psychology from. Goddess of the soul is who she is, but she wasn't always a goddess. She started off as a mere mortal who was in love with the god, Eros, but he wasn't supposed to be in love with her because his mama says, go curse that girl. Well, he fell in love with her. Now, when the gig is up, he runs off. She's all heartbroken, doesn't know what to do. She goes, I'll go to the Temple of Love and ask Aphrodite what to do. Well, she doesn't know that's Eros' mama. I don't know if you're following me. And she goes, oh, yeah, I'll help you find Eros, my son. You do these 4 impossible tasks, and then I'll let you have them. It's like she actually does all four. They can't believe she does all four, but on the fourth one, stealing the beauty box of Persephone, she passes out. Zeus comes off of Mount Olympus, revives her, and that's when she earns her butterfly wings. That's why she has wings like that. Just like a caterpillar to a butterfly, Psyche went from a human to a goddess, the goddess of the soul. And this is what you're all about, because down in here, we were going, why the fuck is this happening to me? That's your jihad. And once you make it through the other side of the jihad, your crucible, whatever you want to call it, then you will earn your wings. I hope you're with me right now. Okay, so the last little part is the boon, the blessing. The blessing can be physical, but I never think it's physical. I mean, sometimes it's physical, but that's bullshit right here. What the blessing really is knowledge, a new way of seeing things. Whether you're Buddha, Muhammad, Jesus, whoever you are, the blessing is a new way of seeing things and how you impart that to the tribe. Every single shaman has always been this, including Jesus. Okay, and so what I'm going to do in just a few minutes is apply this to a particular story, but just remember we've gone through 2 or 3 simple ideas. The belly of the whale, I don't want to do this, why am I here? Then you decide to go ahead and get on with it. That's when you get into this battle down here, the jihad. But eventually out of the jihad, sometimes you become apotheosized. I don't think that's a word. Apotheosis occurs, right? And so you become godlike, and then eventually you bring home the blessing to the tribe. Okay, I hope y'all are still with me. What I wanted to do in this last section is just take some of those ideas that we've been learning about from the monomyth or the hero's journey and apply it to Lord of the Rings. Now, of course, you don't have to remember any of this for the test. Now, here's a map of Middle Earth. Now, I know way too much about this. I actually recreated this one time when I was young, but here's the Shire right here. Let me see if I can get a better pen. I don't know if you can see this. Okay, here's the Shire right in here. So this is the safe, comfy world that the hobbits travel from, and they travel all the way down here to Mordor, and this is the scary place. And then they do all this stuff, and then they come back home. That is the hero's journey, if you think about it. And so when I talk about the Lord of the Rings, I like to talk about how Peter Jackson uses light versus dark within the movie series, because the dark seems really dark and the light is really light, which is like yin and yang, right? And we've talked about those Jungian archetypes, or Taoistic archetypes, I should say. And one of the people that I could talk about as the protagonist is Frodo. He tries to be 100% good, but he has this dot. And he struggles with that, and that's his jihad. There's a lot of characters that have jihads or internal struggles. There is, of course, the external struggle, light versus dark, the 2 towers, right? But nothing will unleash the dark like the ring. It will make that dot become bigger and bigger in all of the characters. And so one of the things I wanted to show are, I think, 3 different videos that have to do with the hero's journey as it relates to this. I think one of them, if this is the right pen, is the belly of the whale. Another one has to do with apotheosis. And the third one has to do kind of with the jihad, that struggle right here with the dot.
I am servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Arnor. The dark fire will not avail you, flame of Udun! Go back to the shadow. Fools!
We must be quick.
You are tracking the footsteps of two young hobbits.
Where are they?
They passed this way the day before yesterday. They met someone they did not expect. Does that comfort you?
Who are you?
Show yourself!
We needs it. Must have the precious. They stole it from us. Sneaky little hobbitses. Wicked, tricksy, false. No, master. Yes, precious, false. They will cheat you, hurt you, lie. Master's my friend. You don't have any friends. Nobody likes you. Not listening. Not listening. You're a liar. And a thief. No. Murderer. Go away. Go away! I hate you. I hate you. Where would you be without me? Ellen, I saved us. It was me. We survived because of me. Not anymore. What did you say? Master looks after us now. We don't need you. What? Leave now and never come back. No! Leave now and never come back. Leave now and never come back.
I wish we were in class where I could explain those three videos a little bit better. If you think about Gandalf, originally he's known as Gandalf the Grey until that moment with the Balrog, and he descends into the abyss and it seems like he's defeated. Then he's put back together again to become Gandalf the White, Apotheosis. In the third video, I just love to show this one because it's like every single morning for Tim, where Gollum is sitting there going, oh my God, they're good. No, they're not good. And so it's that duality, the jihad, his internal struggle, which mimics, I think, all of our internal struggles here on planet Earth, because really the hero's journey is about you and it's about me. And if you're willing to take the trip and come down here and have this experience, because sometimes it's scary, most people don't want to do that, it's like then you come back this way and you become master of two worlds. But you have to go through your jihad, which I argue is not the war against the world, but the war against yourself. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this Joseph Campbell lecture. I'll see you next time.